Companies love to say they want the best and the brightest. They claim they want intelligence, hard work, and excellence. So why aren't we actually seeing the best and the brightest inside top recognized companies? Why aren't the smartest, most capable, academically accomplished people filling these roles? Could it be because of the rise of personality hire requirements? Expectations that have nothing to do with competence and everything to do with emotional catering? When candidates read job descriptions, they look for responsibilities, qualifications, and skills. Nowhere does it say, you must perform full-time emotional labor. You must become a personality hire. You must regulate your boss's emotional climate. You must uplift coworkers on demand. Yet in today's workplace, this is exactly what's happening. Companies aren't hiring just skills. They're hiring emotional performers. People who will smooth tension, absorb stress, neutralize conflict, and make leadership feel calm, admired, and emotionally buffered. And here's the twist. Emotional intelligence is important. It helps teams work better, communicate better, and solve problems. But what many companies demand is not emotional intelligence. It's emotional servitude. There's a difference between being emotionally aware and becoming someone's full-time emotional caretaker. Many workplaces today want the latter. They're not asking for reasonable interpersonal skills. They're demanding full-time emotional labor. That drains workers psychologically, mentally, and economically. And that is inappropriate, unethical, and unsustainable. Meanwhile, companies ignore the timeless wisdom Warren Buffett emphasized. Hire for character and train for skill. Character matters. Responsibility matters. Integrity matters. Competence matters. But today, character is undervalued, while charisma and emotional compliance are celebrated. That shift is a major flaw in modern workplace culture. Employees are expected to uplift their bosses and coworkers, as if it's an unwritten job requirement. But ask yourself, why aren't leaders being the ones to uplift their teams instead of employees? Why aren't leaders regulating their own emotions instead of expecting employees to make them feel the way they want to feel? Isn't the ability to self-manage a basic requirement of leadership? Why are many managers expecting to rely on certain employees, like oxygen and water, emotionally dependent on them to function? When a boss needs an employee's personality, it becomes emotional exploitation, almost analogous to a substance dependency. No one should rely on something external to make themselves feel a certain way. Why can't leaders rely on character and competence to get business-critical milestones done? Isn't that the point of building an effective team? And let's be very clear. Full-time emotional labor is not a job duty. It is not soft skills. It is not team culture. It is not normal. It is inappropriate labor. When demanded, unspoken, or weaponized as a condition for staying employed, employees should never be punished for refusing to provide emotional services that were never listed and never agreed to. The psychological damage no one talks about. This level of emotional expectation is not just unfair. It is psychologically harmful. Employees need the space to check in with themselves, know what they feel, understand who they are, maintain their own identity, protect their emotional energy, show up in healthy, self-respecting ways. But when a boss expects an employee to cater to their emotional needs, the employee's internal world gets rewritten around someone else's moods. Their sense of self starts dissolving into, what does my boss need? How can I keep them stable? What version of myself do I need to be for them? This isn't professionalism. It's emotional enmeshment. And it is psychologically damaging. Because employees stop being people and become emotional tools. Their identity becomes tied to survival, appeasement, and emotional management. Not growth, contribution, or self-actualization. The economic fallout. This doesn't just harm people. It harms businesses and the economy. Healthy economies depend on workers doing real work. Building products, innovating systems, serving customers, and creating competitive value in the marketplace. But when employees spend massive emotional energy performing emotional labor instead of doing the jobs they were hired for, productivity collapses, innovation stalls, output declines, processes break, customer experience suffers, market competitiveness erodes. Instead of building value, companies become preoccupied with emotional turbulence, internal drama, and maintaining fragile egos. And the economy suffers. Because emotional labor replaces real labor. The workplace is not a therapy room. It's not a second living room. It's not a family. Leaders are not royalty. Employees are not emotional support animals. Emotional labor is inappropriate labor. When required, expected, or punished when withheld. It does not belong in a job. Unless it is explicitly spelled out. It was never in the job description. But it absolutely belongs in the conversation about what today's workforce is being forced to endure.